Welcome to Money Talk with Tiff, a podcast where we discuss everything money from tips and tricks to current events. Follow me on my journey to become debt-free and meet other cool people along the way. I am your host, Tiffany Grant. Now let's talk money. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Money Talk with Tiff podcast. Today I'm so excited because I have Rhonda Johnson on the line, and she is the owner and founder of Limitless Empowerment, which is based in Central North Carolina. She is a life coach, prepare and enrich facilitator, and an interpersonal strategy consultant. She specializes in helping couples build strong relationships, and yes, we're going to be talking about money. Her passion and Limitless Empowerment's primary function is to empower marriages and relationships that are suffering. So thank you so much, Rhonda, for being on the show.
You're welcome. And thank you for having me, Tiffany. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So before we have gone, I was telling you, I did a marriage and money episode, but it was just a solo episode. And I was just talking about my experience, and I am not a professional. So I'm so excited to have you on to give a professional viewpoint of how we should manage money as couples. You don't even have to be married, right?
No, this is something for any type of leaning more towards, of course, committed relationships. Yes, these skills can be used in any type of committed relationship regarding money. Yes,
exactly. So let's just go ahead and hop right in. So I guess I want to start with, what type of conflicts do you foresee with couples in marriage, like in your couples in general, with your experience in the field? What has come across your, proverbial couch?
Well, and I hope you can hear me okay.
I can.
So I've come across a lot of problems with vulnerability, and money is an especially vulnerable topic. So I see a lot of problems with emotional vulnerability, financial vulnerability, trust, the lack of trust in couples. And I've seen this is kind of a hard one to, like, compatibility issues. It's like, you have the flowers and the rainbows and things like that. And then year number 5, it's like, the kids are here. We got the job. Someone's idea of, hardworking, providing for the family now is completely different than this person's idea of it was. And you're thinking, okay, yeah, we're on the same page. And then, of course, the financial issues, life responsibilities get in the way. And you realize, we have a compatibility issue. And none of these things are do or die. They're things that just have to be worked out. But those are the main problems I see: compatibility, lack of vulnerability, and then lack of trust.
Yes. And I can speak from experience. So just to recap, if we have any new listeners, I just got married in May. And I will say, in my relationship from the beginning, from combining our finances from that standpoint, my husband had to get through some trust issues because he had an ex-girlfriend that would, he would give her the money to pay bills and do things, and she would spend it, and he ended up with nothing and all of this stuff. And so he's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go through this again, which I completely understand. But we had to work through that because me, as like a financial coach, I'm like, okay, we need to combine finances. We need to have the same budget. We need to do this. We need to do that. And I had to learn to take a step back and say, okay, he's working through something here,
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And so I can definitely attest to that was and has been a trying thing for us, but slowly but surely, as he has seen the account increase and bills are being paid, he's like, okay, I think we can do this now. So what are your tips? Like, so for situations where, let's say, trust and vulnerability is an issue, because a lot of people don't have pretty financial pictures. And I've even seen people say, well, I don't want to get married until my financial situation is perfect, you know? So what are your tips for couples that are working through those types of issues?
Well, excuse me. Thank you. First of all, thank you for sharing that vulnerable moment with us. I mean, that's huge. That's really huge. I really like the way that you were able to get to the vulnerability, the trust issue. Now, he may have opened that up to you, but I think that you capitalized on that, right? And it maybe you didn't realize you were doing it, but because of what you could show over time has helped soothe that trust issue. And not only is it trust for other people, it's trust for himself, right? Because he made the decision somewhere along the line to, okay, I'm going to give this money, this person control and power over this money to do this. And they did not do it. So not only, again, is there a lack of trust for that, for other people, there's a lack of trust in your decision-making schema. Okay, well, I'm a bad person because I should have seen I couldn't trust her. So all these things are playing into his decision making. So by you being, and it's things that it could be your personality. It could be how you are in the moment of conflict. Some people, they shut down. Some people stonewall. Some people yell. Some people, they come. Conflict is a very defensive, triggering place, especially when we're talking about money and feelings, which is, 3/4 of the time. But I mean, those are two subjects that there's so much shame surrounding them. And so how the person who is financially literate approaches that is a huge component of how the person who's not as financially literate reacts. So if you reacted like, look, I know what I'm doing. I'm that girl. I'm that woman. I'm that chick. Yeah, you're going to get a lot of shutdown, a lot of pushback because you're just going up against a lot more than money. You're going up against what he thinks about himself, what he thinks about others. And of course, those defenses will come up. So I really like the way, you first of all, he shared what happened. I think that a lot of people don't like to share what happened again because there's so much shame and embarrassment surrounding it. But sharing that moment of, okay, this is why I feel this way is so powerful in a couple. So you have to create that space. I call it that safe, judgment-free space where this person can say what happened. And your first thing isn't, because here's the thing, a lot of people's first thing is, well, especially they have money issues, I wouldn't trust them with money anyway. I just would have paid a bill. Well, that's not where he's coming from. And then if you were to say something like that, you would reinforce those feelings of mistrust. So I'm really glad, just to start off initially, just from what you told me, I'm really, really glad that either you said something or you acted in a way that provided him that safe space to say, okay, I'm willing to make the bid and open up to trust you. That's huge. That's really huge when it comes to, an emotional hurt and a financial hurt like that. That's really huge. And I think we were talking also about people waiting to get themselves together financially before they do whatever. So I think that's also an emotional component. I think we think that if we get ourselves together financially, that immediately equates to happiness, right? Oops, hitting my coffee cup. And usually to me, what we mean is once I achieve this level of financial status, so when I get this house, this car, this, that, I will be happy and well enough financially and emotionally to get married, to think about getting married, as opposed to, debt reduction, wealth building, things like that. I think that we really think about this level of achievement because to me, that's I think just the way things are culturally American-wise, and I'm African-American-wise, that is a sign of health. It's a sign of physical health, emotional health, mental health, that you are financially good. Like you driving a big car, you got the big house, and you're ready to make big time moves. And that's not the case. You could be a 4-year-old in a 40-year-old's body with all this cute stuff, and then somebody will come around you, and they'll be, we all heard the story. They got all this money, but when you marry them, they're just like an emotional desert. you know?
Speak on it.
So, right? So we have to get out. And I think for everybody, we have to get out of this idea that money and emotions are on a separate plane. They are so intermingled and so interconnected that you can't have one without the other, right? So to me, you can't have financial success without mental and emotional success. They go hand in hand. You can't, if one is rising, I'll take that. Financially, we're sticking on the financial side of it. I'm about to get all complicated in this Sunday.
Oh, get complicated.
Okay. So to me, if your financial status is high, you really need to be checking on your emotional status. And if I see somebody who emotionally well, usually the finances will come on top of that. An emotionally well person, a mentally well person has the self-esteem, the go-getter, the energy to go out here and make themselves, viable financially. Where to me, if, you haven't done the emotional work, you can be financially set and really cause a lot of problems, emotionally.
Absolutely. Yes. That makes perfect sense. If y'all can see me right now, I'm over here rocking like I'm in the church house with my hands up because she is preaching a whole word today. Because my first blog post ever, so this was almost 3 years ago when I started Money Talk with Tiff, was money is an emotional thing. That is what it was called. And I can't stress enough how much your past, your emotions, how you feel about money impacts how you manage and, obtain and all that type of things surrounding money. It's amazing to me how people miss that part. And that's kind of how I work through when I do coaching. I work on the emotional, the mental part of the money, because if you don't have that down, I can talk about budgets until I'm blue in the face. But if you are an emotional spender and you don't have that under control, it's not going to make a difference. And so that's part of like my approach to coaching, is because I understand that, look, a lot of times that our spending habits or even saving habits, because there's a whole other side of the spectrum, those are all built around our emotions and our mental. So I completely agree with everything you just said. And I'm over here with like chills because I'm just like, ooh. Because, it is a trust thing. Like going back to the whole trust thing, if you don't trust yourself with money,
yeah,
how can you trust anybody else with money? And that's the same thing. Like if you're in business, if you're working for someone, whatever the case is, you have to find yourself and you have to figure out, okay, self, what is my emotion tied to this? Why am I feeling this way?
That is a perfect segue. If I may interrupt you, please.
Yes. Please.
So after creating the safe space, we have to identify our emotions. So if you're keeping a list, we're going to create a safe space to have these financial/emotional conversations. Another important component is exactly what you said, is identifying feelings. And you would be amazed how people cannot identify feelings. I have a client who, her husband is just explode. And that's his sadness, that's his anger, that's his frustration, that's his confusion. And so if you were, I think she actually said that this person kind of like, why are you yelling? And just all this explosion where you're looking at this person, you say he's angry. And I say it like this, it shows his anger, but he's hurt. It shows his anger, but he's sad. Okay. And so it's like, I had the wife, what am I feeling right now? We have we have feeling wheels, and we have like little things where little kids, because it's for little kids, but it's actually for everybody. And it's interesting. It has the kid's face, and the kid is expressing an emotion, and you say, how are you feeling today? And the child or adult, is like, okay, I feel sad. And they literally have to make the connotation that that's a sad face. Mm-hmm. Okay. So when it resonates with me that's how I feel, that's how sadness looks like. And that's literally teaching people to identify their feelings, because one, again, we're not the same thing with money. We're not taught emotional intelligence. We're not taught the skills to say, okay, I'm sad, especially again, in a society where sadness is seen as weakness, complaining, it's looked down upon. So we have to mask it in anger, or we have to mask it in avoidance. And in relationships, it is imperative that we are able to say, okay, I'm feeling sad right now. It's imperative, because if you don't, then all I see is anger. And now that triggers my anger response. If my anger response is angry, I'm going to try to outdo your anger. If my anger response is avoidance, I'm going to try and leave the house. If my response to anger is anxiety or fear about the relationship, I'm going to become very clingy, very afraid, and it's important when we have these huge conversations like about finances that we can identify where we are on the emotional spectrum, because that determines what kind of talk we're going to have, right? Mm-hmm. So if we're having a conversation, even you and I, it's not necessarily couples, it's in any type of relationship, and you come to me and you're coming to me just straight Tiffany style, just like, Rhonda, I was thinking about blah, 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 blah. And I'm sitting here like, and I'm sitting here like, okay, you see, your words seem nice, but I'm mad right now because I don't want to talk about how poor of a budgeter I am. Mm. So I'm going to come out of whatever box I'm going to come out. It's kind of like, it's how your words say it, and then it's how your feelings, interpret that. Mm. So on another aspect of it, the example I was giving with you could be coming to me as nice as Tiffany Grant can come to me, and I'm going to reject you. I'm going to be mad because I'm like, that's personal. I know we're supposed to be talking about it, but you're going to have to get through my defenses before we can really do the work. And that's how it is in relationships. And the thing to realize is that once we create that space and we're able to identify the feelings, we really have to figure out how to be there for our significant other. Okay, so now that I know that you're sad, what can I do so that we can continue to talk about this, and you don't shut down or you don't walk away or something like that. So I just had to interject that part about identifying feelings because it's so important.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? It's funny because I have had clients like that. I still currently do, but right. That will just not come to the meetings, come up with every excuse in the book because we're on the topic of budgeting. And they know that when we get on this call, I'm going to ask, okay, so how did your budget go this week? Were there any things that you could tweak? Were there any new revelations? Whatever the case may be, and they will avoid that conversation. A lot of times when money is involved and people's financial pictures aren't what they deem to be ideal, they will just avoid it. I mean, they will let student loans go into default. They will just let whatever happens to their credit happen to their credit, just all types of things, because I guess the emotion that they experience when they do try to confront that.
Yeah, the emotions of helplessness, the emotions of overwhelmed, because when we don't know what to do, we try to take everything on. We try to, hit everything. Okay, I'm gonna take it, cut this, move this, get 15 jobs, and that's why I want to emphasize to the listeners, it's so important to get help. Reach out. You have money coaches, you have life coaches. Get help. Don't be ashamed to get help, because to me, I'm putting myself in there with finances, get into these situations. We don't know any better. We don't know any better. And that's what reaching out for help gets us. Now it has us confronting ourselves, and nobody likes that. Nobody likes to see their shortcomings or where they can do better, whether they know it or not. But that's part of the process. That's part of getting help. And so what I try to do with my clients, and I like the way that it sounds like you try to do it, Tiffany, too, is just it's to take out that good bad part. Good people are financially awesome. Bad people are bad. No, it's a series of decisions that you made that got us here. Okay.
Exactly.
And we're here. Let's acknowledge we're here. Let's get this thing together and let's turn the tide. Let's turn this corner and let's get this thing going the way you want it to go. And and here's the thing about that is that feelings, I love them. Just because, again, like I said, you could be as sweet as you want to be with that. You could send it. You could be as non-direct, like send people an email, and if they're not ready to confront the decisions they've made and whatever feelings that come from that, feelings of shame, feelings of, stupidity. I did that because I was stupid. I took a vacation, I couldn't afford it, and now it's still haunting me 10 years later. And what I try to keep in mind, because real talk, that's how I feel financially. Come on.
Let's talk about the feelings now.
Let's keep it real. Yeah, I mean, I'm like, the thing that it's a weird comfort, it's a motivation and it's a weird comfort. And I think you and I talked about this before, Tiffany, is that you guys, like, I'm watching reports all the time on stimulus packages. And it's I'm all about YouTube. I love YouTube, but I'm telling you, those things keep YouTube in business, talking about stimulus packages. So what I'm saying is it's both a comfort and like scary. Everybody's in this situation one way, shape, or form. A majority of the people, right? Mm-hmm. So to me, that says something about how we're taught or not taught rather about money as a society. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so for me, that's a call to get right. That's going to take some time, but I don't, God forbid anything like the pandemic happens again or anything, but next time anything happens, I don't want to be watching a whole bunch of videos on a stimulus check. I don't want to be, I don't want that to be my story. And I'm watching it more because that's my way of staying motivated, that it's like, okay, this is a huge turn that the country has to make, or this is going to keep happening. And so it's like we owe it to ourselves to become financially literate. We owe it to ourselves to become emotionally literate and understand the two can exist, but they don't have to mix all the time, because I think that's what's happening. I think that's on a global scale, because everybody's economy is affected. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that helps me with getting help too is I want to come out of this better than how I went in.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I want to go back to communicating through anger, because you said, one of your clients, the husband is or the significant other is very angry all the time, just from emotion. And I know that budgeting conversations, because I have a couple clients as well, and money discussions can get very heated. Budgeting discussions can get very heated. So how do we work through that? Like, how do we get to a point where that does not happen and people don't shut down? How do we make that easier? How do we make a difficult conversation easier to deal with?
One way we do that is sort of through practicing. So we got to work our way up to that, because what I'm thinking is this is the first time this couple has sat down and really talked to anybody about finances and possibly subjects this serious. is in front of you. So unfortunately, you're kind of getting this weird dynamic of we're opening our very interpersonal lives to somebody. Now this is becoming more than about money. I was prepared to come in here and talk about money, how much we make. I wasn't prepared to have a conversation that would have an emotional component. What I would, we're in different spaces, so I'd be like, you know what, Tiffany, have them talk in front of you and see how, but that's not what you do. So from my perspective, I would start with something small. I put that in quotes. So what I try to do with my couples is I try and break down an incident. So another couple I had real bad communication. He would do something. There was trust issues in the past. So she texts, he texts, she texts more, he texts even more, calling and this, where you at, everything. So what I had them do is I said, take me back through what happened. Just take me back. And okay, then what did you do? Okay, then what did you do? Okay, then what did you do? So what I would have the couple do is sort of see for themselves where does it go off track? What were you thinking and what were you feeling when you said this? And you knew in your heart that this would get this reaction, like when it went off the rails. And most couples are like, oh, like this. Okay, so that's where we need to kind of backtrack the conversation. Okay, so that now make a different choice. If you made a different choice, if the conversation could have gone the way you wanted it to go, first of all, we identify that. Then what would you say? So right here in the comfort of where we are now, what would you have said? And they usually say the complete opposite, but that's vulnerability. And so we kind of agree to, okay, sir, would that have worked for you? Would you have chosen a different thing? Yes. Okay. So to me, the couples have to learn to talk. Okay. Yes. If they don't know how to talk to each other in ways that creates, again, space of safety, trust, and where they can be vulnerable, they need to do that first before they do any money coaching. Because to me, if you guys aren't communicating before this, it takes a highly skilled couple to navigate this stuff if you've never talked like that before. So a high conflict couple, when it comes to anything, money, any type of plans, that shows me, there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect that has to be addressed first, because to me, that it's going to turn into something weird. Somebody dragging the person into the money coaching, somebody taking control of, as opposed to it being a two-party deal. Somebody, okay, well, I just started doing this with no discussion. It can get real weird and ugly quick.
Yeah. And not to cut you off, but I just wanted to interject right there, because I have turned down clients because they were like, oh, well, I just handle all my own stuff. I'm married, but, his money is his. And I'm like, the thing is, when it comes to being a unit, it doesn't matter if you all have separate bank accounts. It doesn't matter if, you all paid separate bills, whatever, you're still a unit. And so at the end of the day, the other person needs to be part of this conversation, because if not, then it's still going to be a mess.
Yes. And I commend you for doing that. Yes, it's very good.
Yeah, because, so for instance, I had someone, they were going through like the onboarding process and everything. And I was like, wait, your husband's information is not on here. Oh no, well, I'm not gonna include him in this. And I was like, because at the end of the day, right, if you're married, even if, because I've seen it in action where one person was in control of everything, and they ended up passing away. And then the other person, in this particular situation, they didn't even know how to pay the mortgage. They didn't know how to do anything because the husband took care of everything. And so that's why I emphasize that if you are in a committed relationship or married or whatever, and you, money is a big part of, how you all operate, then, which is everybody, then you need to start having these conversations together, because if not, God forbid anything happens to one of you all, and that was the person that was taking care of everything, then you're going to be up the creek without a paddle. With this particular client, I was having to walk her, and it was an older lady. I was having to walk her through getting the pension benefits that she was owed from his job, figuring out how to pay her mortgage, like all of these things, because once he passed away, that was it. And it was pretty abrupt. And so it was like, but all these years, she was never part of the conversation. And so that's why when it comes to my own practice, I'm like, like if the person just sits in on the meeting, like I would love to get them part of the conversation. Like I want interaction as well, but as long as they know what's going on too, because at the end of the day, it's a unit thing. It's not a me, you, it's an us. And so that needs to resonate in all areas of your life now. So yes, I very much agree. I can't say how much I agree. Like this whole conversation has given me so much life. So Rhonda, when couples, let's say for instance, I'm out of the picture, right? So it's just a couple and they're like, okay, we have to have our monthly budgeting conversation. Do you suggest that they take that same route and, well, let's go through this old situation, or do you recommend that only happens with a mediator?
It depends on your communication style. So if you all know by the end of the conversation, there are going to be dishes thrown, hollering, crying, tears, don't get a mediator. Okay. Don't do it on your own. Don't do it. No. Yeah. Seriously, to me, if you know that it's highly triggering and, it's just, and I think people know it. I think that people just sort of like, well, that's just how we communicate. No, it's not.
Right.
I mean, you guys have adopted this maladaptive way of communicating, but it's not helping anybody that conversations like this just go off the rails. So yeah, I would definitely recommend a mediator to sort of like I do with the clients, just breaking down the conversation and saying, okay, how often does this happen when, and again, like anything else, if you kind of scrutinize it, you can see the patterns. You can see, okay, here, the conversation is very quickly skidding. It's off the rails. If you break it down like that, you can see it. You can, and my thing is that you want the couples to see it, and they're so into it. They're so into their self-protection. They don't see it. And then for them to see it, here's where the third party is good, the mediator. The mediator sees it with no judgment.
Right.
It's just they're taking a conversation and I'll say that. I take a conversation, I just break it down, talk, you talk, she talk, you talk, she talk. Okay. All right. So now are we seeing where when this statement happens and now I'm asking her to explain how she felt when she made that statement? And if she says, okay, I know that would get him mad. Okay, now you're seeing that. Okay, then and that's what it takes. And that's why I was saying, like, when it comes to having these conversations, if you're one of those couples, and every couple communicates differently, some couples can sit down and write stuff out. Okay, Sunday mornings, we're going to sit down and have the budget conversation. We're going to sit down, we're going to pull out receipts from the week. We're going to pull out whatever we got and kind of look and see where we are. Some couples can do that. Most couples, until they're very financially literate, will have to work through the emotional piece first. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, it can look at like so many different ways. You can do the writing thing where instead of talking, because you just know that when you talk, it's going to escalate. The voices are going to get a little higher and higher and higher. Right. So you can, maybe even open up a spreadsheet and just go through it real quick. I know in my relationship, when I first started budgeting, actually, it was like week month one after getting married, so June, we created a budget. And when it was probably about day 5, we had blown the fast food budget out the window. By hundreds. And so at that point, it was like a shutdown moment, then both of us was like, okay, we just don't want to do this anymore. I just don't want to track anymore. I just want to spend everything and, this, that, and the other. But when you do things like that, it makes it worse down the line. And so we have learned to, if that ever happens, we have learned to talk about it while it's happening instead of letting it build up and then catching it later. So I feel like that has been helpful, especially with my situation. But I just feel like communication, emotions and communication, if you can get that down, because that's what we've been talking about this whole episode. If you can get that down, you will be a force to be reckoned with when it comes to money, and not just couples, but just individuals in general. If you can get your emotions down, if you can get your communication down, and when I say communicate, if you're single, that means communicating to your creditors, communicating to the people that you're paying bills to, it all stems from communication. I have seen situations where people avoided default. They had forgot about their student loans, but they reached out finally, and the student loan people, they took it out of default because you actually made an effort, So it all boils down to communication and emotions. So thank you so much, Rhonda. This was awesome. So if people were interested in utilizing your services or finding you, how would they do that?
Okay. Right now I'm communicating through email, or they can communicate with me through email. My bad. At Rhonda J, RHONDAJAY at Limitless Empowerment, one word, .life. I'm not spelling all that Limitless Empowerment out. I'm sorry.
I'll have it in the show notes.
Okay,
no worries.
thank you. I'm like, y'all,
Limitless Empowerment.
.life. Yes, so that's the best way. I'm like, please don't make me spell all that. So that's the best way to communicate with me now. And I'm just, any questions, anything that you have, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you, because I just really believe that that's my mantra. My mantra is, strong couples make strong families make strong communities, and strong communities change the world. So that's what I really believe. So yeah, I'm more than willing to help. So.
Awesome. And are you taking new clients right now?
I am. I'm taking new clients. I am, because I want to help couples see the magic of communicating. I always say this, I hope I'm not taking too long, but it's not fun, but the trust and love that you build with your significant other when you are able to talk to them in a free, vulnerable manner it's a beautiful thing. I would love to share that gift with others. So,
yes, it is. So please, couples, if you're listening, reach out to Rhonda and let her change your life. We saving relationships out here, y'all.
Changing the world here, y'all. That's
changing the world. Yes. So thank you so much again for coming on, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Money Talk with Tiff podcast. For free resources and materials, head over to moneytalkwitht.com. And while you're there, why not sign up for our newsletter so you'll never miss an episode? Talk to you soon.